I'm going to go ahead and call to order the Planning Commission meeting for May 6, 2021. Do I have a motion to? Okay, you just go to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Emily, could you do the roll call for us, please?
Sure. We have Commissioners Millis, Jurgensen, Pearson, Campbell, Diata, and Stolarski. Everyone is present, and Bullion. We're all here.
Next up is approval of minutes from last time we met, which was February
March 4th.
4th of 2021. Is there any discussion? Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
I move to accept as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Emily, do we have to go through this one individually since we're on Zoom?
We do. So the motion is for the approval of minutes. Commissioner Pearson.
Yes.
Commissioner Millis.
Yes.
Commissioner Stolarski.
Yes.
Commissioner Jurgensen.
Abstain.
Thank you. Commissioner Campbell.
Abstain.
Thank you. Commissioner Diata.
Yes.
Commissioner Bullion.
Yes.
Thank you. So the minutes are approved.
Next up, we have a public hearing for the planned unit development amendment, forefront office and industrial area, Slumberland and United Properties.
Emily, before we move right into the agenda, if Councilmember Olson would like to say anything, she is on.
Oh, I didn't see her on the screen.
Yep, she's
Oh,
here.
there she is. Sorry, Olson. You popped on. I missed you.
Don't even worry about it. I don't really have a whole lot to update other than to remind you guys that next week is our joint meeting next on the 18th. And also good news, it sounds like we're going forward with the Summerfest as well. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer anything.
Yeah, I had a question. Each of the meetings, each of the commissions have their own time slot. Does that mean you only have to show up for your time slot, or are they expecting everybody to participate in the entire meeting? I was wondering about that.
No, only your time slot.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
And is that on Zoom or is that live? Do you know, Emily?
Right now, there's a choice. You can either come to the Discovery Center or join on Zoom.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, now we will go ahead and start the public hearing for the planned unit development amendment for forefront office and industrial area, Slumberland and United Properties. Do you have a presentation for us, Emily?
I do. So I'm sharing my screen so that we can see the location that we're going to be talking about. And so this is the Forefront Technology and Office Campus located north of County Road 14 and east of 694. And the request today is focused on the future development area, a specific portion of it on this campus. So the buildings right now are located kind of in the central area of the site, and there are two areas for future development. This east expansion area is approximately 15 acres, and this west expansion area is about 50 acres. So tonight we're going to be talking about just a portion of this west expansion area. As the developers have been thinking about future development, Slumberland and which is the owner of Forefront, has partnered with United Properties to look at what this west expansion area might become. And so what they're proposing right now is dividing that into 4 different parcels for future development. And this ordinance amendment we're talking about tonight is specifically just addresses the uses on parcel A. So for this parcel, they're requesting that we allow 2 additional uses to what's currently allowed. And what those are would be light manufacturing and office showroom, office warehouse uses. The current uses that are allowed there are office and research and development. So all 4 of those uses would be permitted under this proposed ordinance. So with this future phase, those 4 uses may be contained within 1 large building, possibly up to 310,000 square feet, or in 2 buildings that would total that same amount of square footage. So typically users in these types of buildings are between 20,000 and 60,000 square feet. So within that 310,000 square feet, you may have a number of different businesses. So the draft ordinance that we're looking at tonight has a few different parts to it. It first of all defines the area that this amendment will apply. As we just mentioned, that parcel A. It articulates the goals and purpose for this area. It defines what the uses and what the terms and uses mean in this ordinance amendment. And then it outlines the permitted uses. So these are the 4 that I just talked about: offices, research and development, light manufacturing, office showroom, office warehouse. And then it also lists some prohibited uses, and those are intended to provide clarity as to what is allowed by addressing some uses that are clearly not intended for this area. So all of the proposed permitted uses are defined the same way they are in our current ordinance, with the exception of office showroom and office warehouse. And I'll scroll back up to that definition. That's right here, letter J. So the difference is that the percentage of office space has increased from 20 to 25%. And then clear heights in the warehouse component of the space are allowed to go up to 32 feet. Those 2 modifications help ensure job generating uses in this location, while also providing the type of space that users are currently seeking. There's also a provision in the ordinance, this section 4, that requires a landscape buffer along the northern portion of parcel A. I can scroll back to what that looks like. Right here, this northern part, because that is the boundary between this area and the Willowbrook neighborhood. So we want to ensure that there's compatibility between these new uses and the planned Willowbrook neighborhood. So as staff has been working with the developers on this, we have concluded that this ordinance amendment is consistent with the comprehensive plan guiding for the area. These uses would be compatible with the existing forefront neighborhood or forefront development there, the businesses that are there and the intent for that campus. It also will help meet the city's goals on the comprehensive plan for economic development by providing employment opportunities and expanding industry diversity. There's also sufficient infrastructure capacity to serve this new development. So staff is recommending approval of the PUD amendment, and I would be happy to address any questions the commission may have at this time. We also have Michael Larson from Slumberland Forefront, Scott Peterson from United Properties, and Sam Edelstein from HDA Architects. They're present on behalf of this request if there are any questions for them as well.
It's Chris. I do have a question on section 4. How do we determine what additional setback and landscape buffer is needed? As written, it seems kind of vague.
Yes, so the developers understand that there needs to be this compatibility. We are going to be looking at the existing trees along there to see what kind of buffering they provide, and then what additional tree plantings may be needed to support that and create that buffer. So that's something that we'll be working with developers as they put together their site plan to ensure that that intent is met.
Thank you.
As I posed to you a couple of questions, I know it's not necessarily in our purview, but I'd like to flesh it out a little bit on the hazardous waste plan for any solvents, chemical waste, where they're at on that, and ponding requirements, since we're putting up a lot of impervious surfaces here.
Sure. So, and folks from on behalf of the application may want to chime in as well. But with regard to hazardous materials, there are a number of agencies that regulate hazardous materials. And so if there are any businesses that locate here that have anything in the components of their manufacturing process, or they're storing anything, those would need to comply with those regulations. Our fire department also works closely with businesses that do deal with those materials on a regular basis to develop response plans in case there's a leak or some issue develops with any of those kind of industrial materials. With regard to stormwater management and impervious surfaces, so this the site plan would need to meet the Valley Branch Watershed District requirements. And the two preliminary site plans that were really just meant to show kind of massing and how much building and parking fit on the site both have space available for ponding in each scenario. So the developers have already kind of looked at what might be required and made sure that there's enough space on the site to accommodate that.
Excellent, thank you.
And the roadway access in and out will be 214, is that correct? Not up through into Willowbrook at all, correct? Right.
That is correct. So they are working with the county right now to see if it's possible to do a new access on County Road 14. So this would be more or less across from the entrance to LA Fitness and Pins. It's fairly close to the on-ramp to 694, and so that needs to be evaluated for safety and functionality. County Road 14 is a county road, so they're working on that. Otherwise, all access would come in off of the existing access to the site, which is at a signalized intersection. So no traffic would be going to 36th Street, which is where the Willowbrook neighborhood traffic will be coming in.
Sounds like it's good for jobs in Oakdale, to me.
Is there any further questions from the fellow commissioners?
I don't know if we have anyone from the general public.
That's
maybe
what I was
at the
trying to
public
see.
hearing, but there might be some folks who want to chime in.
So let's go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to speak about this ordinance? Okay, I'll go ahead then and close the public hearing. I'm looking for somebody to make a motion for the ordinance amending the 3M I-Nation Plan Unit Development Agreement and Concept Plan to designate 4 areas in the West Expansion Area for future development and the establishment, the purposes and uses for the forefront office and industrial area.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second. Pearson.
Emily, could you take the vote, please?
Yes, so Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner Boulian,
Aye.
Commissioner Diata,
Yes.
Commissioner Millis,
Aye.
Commissioner Jurgensen,
Aye.
Commissioner Pearson,
Yes.
Commissioner Stolarski.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next up is the review of the preliminary final plat for the Willowbrook 3rd Edition Continental Properties.
Yep, and And I just want to thank the folks from Forefront and United Properties for joining our meeting. And you guys can go ahead and stick around if you'd like. Otherwise, I will follow up with you afterwards on the next steps as this goes forward to the City Council.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Okay, so here is our next site that we're looking at. So we're just north of the Forefront Technology and Office campus that we just talked about. And we're going to be talking about Springs at Willowbrook. And so this development continues the implementation of the Willowbrook neighborhood. And this overall plan has been in the works for a number of years. It's been incorporated into our comprehensive plan. We've adopted a new zoning ordinance addressing this neighborhood. And now we're moving forward towards implementation. When this, the preliminary plat was approved for the entire neighborhood back in September, we didn't have a developer on board yet for this southeast quadrant. The landowner had anticipated possibly working with Continental. So this layout is very similar to what you're going to see tonight for the Springs project. However, it's changed a little bit. And because we anticipated that was likely to happen, this part of the neighborhood, as well as these two other multifamily sites, need to come back for site plan review. And so that's one of the things we're doing here tonight is we're looking at creating a lot and block through preliminary and final plat for this new development, and then also looking at their site plan. So for the preliminary and final plat, we're creating one lot on one block for the development, and then one outlot that will be dedicated to the city for stormwater ponding. So that's technically what the plat looks like. So now getting into the site plan. Here's the layout for that area. There are going to be 14 two-story buildings arranged throughout the site. There's one main entrance here off of 36th Street North. This is a secured gated community, and so there's a gate access. Once you get in, you can come in and visit the clubhouse, so without having to go through the gate. So if folks have events there or have guests coming, they'll be able to park in that location. Otherwise, there is a decorative fence that runs along the entire perimeter of the property. There is a secondary access close to Ideal Avenue North, and that allows another way in and out for the fire department or any emergency vehicles. There's also access for pedestrians on the north part of the site here to connect to the park and open space system in the Willowbrook neighborhood. So this next sheet is the landscape plan. So there will be new tree plantings along the street, which is consistent with the broader Willowbrook neighborhood, really trying to bring in that nice tree-lined street aesthetic. There's also multiple trees planted throughout the site. They've got shrub plantings anywhere that parking is near the streets. In terms of the buildings themselves and the exterior materials, there will be two main color schemes for the buildings. And so what I've put together here is just sort of each side, generally of each of those 14 buildings. This is typically the front. This is one color scheme, and the right side in that same color scheme. And then the left elevation, rear elevation here that are shown are in that second color scheme. So all of the buildings have the same architectural styling, but will be differentiated by those different color schemes. There's also an amenity building that I was noting just to the left side of the main entrance. And so this is also like architecturally compatible with the residential buildings on the site. There are tuck under garages in some of the buildings, and then also detached garages and surface parking to serve the residents. And then there is a maintenance building on site as well. And then finally, in terms of architectural and building, they've got a mail kiosk that's also very compatible with the buildings. And then their trash enclosure with the trash compactor located centrally on the site. And all of these buildings and accessory buildings have similar materials and architectural detailing to create a cohesive neighborhood. So with that, staff evaluation has determined that this meets our comprehensive plan, small area plan, the Willowbrook Plan Unit Development Ordinance, and the goals and intent for this area. So staff is recommending approval of the preliminary and final plat, as well as the site plan for this project. So I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have at this time. And we have Eric Tom from Continental Properties and Mark Cronbeck from Alliant Engineering here on behalf of the request.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I have some questions on the parking. I guess it's more for the applicant. Do these units have parking? Or first, I guess there's several parking questions. One is, does each unit have an attached garage?
This is Eric Tom with Continental. No, not each unit has an attached garage. It's there are 8 garages per building that are attached. And then there's a detached option as well.
Okay, and so what we're seeing, those are single stall garages attached to the buildings.
No, actually, some of those garages are also tandem stall. Or
They're front to
garages.
back?
Yep, you can line them up front to back and 2 on the ends.
Is there any parking in front of the garages?
No. Well, yes, you could park a car in front of the garages, if that's what you mean in the apron.
Right.
Yes. Yep, you can do that.
Okay. To me, it looks like there's a ton of on-street or guest or overflow parking.
Yes.
All throughout the site. Those are intended for the residents?
Yes. This is a gated community, so this would be residents, and then there's enough parking within our community to allow for guests. And with the gate, and you know, we have cameras and stuff that can monitor cars and vehicles. So you know, over time, if we see somebody staying that isn't on the lease, we'll follow up with that individual.
I guess to me, when I look at this, it just looks like a ton of parking.
Yeah, maybe Emily can speak to that, but we're actually a little less than I think what code allows on this plan.
So for multifamily housing at the Willowbrook neighborhood, it's between 1.5 spaces per unit and 2 spaces per unit. So for a typical townhome neighborhood, like the one that Lennar is building just across the street, they may end up with 2 spaces per unit. A multifamily apartment building may be down to 1.5 spaces per unit. And that's the same parking ratio that we'll have at the Helmo Station neighborhood as well. So this is something that has worked for Continental in other Springs projects that they've done in the region, has proved to be sufficient, and it does meet our ordinance requirements for parking.
Mm-hmm. We're usually across our portfolio about 1.75 stalls per unit. You can average to 1.8 sometimes. And this one, you know, that's over the 76 different properties that we own and operate over 19 states. We found through a lot of analysis that this is the right parking ratio without getting too many and then causing more impervious area. This is really where the communities really are stable. It allows for the snow impacts as well. So this is really for this community the right number.
And then I guess, had another question, I guess, for Emily, was the setbacks along the building setbacks along 36th Street and Ideal are at 10 feet.
Yes, and so that is the same setback that we have for the Lennar townhome community. That's the minimum setback from the street. It helps the buildings kind of engage the street. We're going to have a sidewalk will be running along 36th Street, and a trail will be going along Ideal Avenue North. So that meets our ordinance requirements as well.
Trails, I take it, are outside the fence, the gate?
Yeah. We have
That's
internal sidewalks as well, connecting the neighborhood as a whole. But yeah, we have a couple of gates that would connect to those trails to the community. Chiefly, the main one is the one that Emily pointed out on the north side that goes to the main trail for the community to the north.
And then this application does not require a public hearing at the Planning Commission. A preliminary and final plat does have a public hearing, but that happens at the City Council. So that would be at the May 25th meeting. However, this is a public meeting. So if anyone was present and wanted to make any comments or ask questions, we can do that at this time.
So the only real entrance into it is off 36th Street, right? This emergency entrance is to the east, but also off of 36th Street. So there's no access in and out of Ideal, is that correct?
That is correct. And that would be consistent with what the county would want with the spacing along Ideal. So 36th Street, that's existing. And then we're gonna have a new 38th Street up here to the north that will serve the development. There's also a pretty significant grade change. There's retaining walls that start kind of about here and run all the way along that make it very difficult to have access to this site onto 38th Street. So, and then again, with the security and the gated community wanting to have that primary entrance here off 36.
Just curious, is this going to be then higher than the properties to the north sit higher or lower? It would be higher, right? You said that the wall between, there's a grading difference.
Maybe Mark can speak to that.
Yeah, I can. The site generally drains from or slopes from south to north, and the larger ponds are to the north, and I think the site generally drains to the northwest. So yeah, it decreases in grade as you move north and northwest.
Okay.
And when I said significant retaining wall, I think it's only 3 to 4 feet high, but it's just enough to make it difficult to have an access drive in that location.
There's on the south side of 36th Street, my recollection, there's a pond right there that was on the old Emesha property. Is that tied into overflow into your outlot A?
Is this the pond you're talking about?
Yeah.
At that corner?
No, that's not. There's a little bit of water from Ideal and the intersection of 38th that's essentially public water that goes to the outlot, and that's why it's an outlot, to keep the public water in a public space and not come into a private stormwater system.
Okay, I was just wondering where the overflow went from that other pond, existing pond.
Yeah, no, that apparently drains, I assume, into the ditch along Ideal, and I believe will end up on a pipe that the county will install with their reconstruction.
Yep, I believe this pond drains to the south. There's kind of a watershed divide that happens right around this area. So part of the Forefront campus drains to the south through Lake Elmo, but then all of the stormwater for the Willowbrook neighborhood will be draining north And so the stormwater eventually from this site will go into the Willowbrook storm system.
Any further questions or discussion? Okay. I'm looking for a motion for a resolution approving the preliminary and final plat for the Willowbrook 3rd edition, subject to conditions. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Pearson.
Do I have a second?
Second, Bullion.
Emily, could you please take the vote for us?
Commissioner Bullion,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner Diata,
Yes.
Commissioner Millis,
Yes.
Commissioner Jurgensen,
Aye.
Commissioner Pearson,
Yes.
Commissioner Stolarski.
Aye.
That motion passes. Next up, we have the approving of the site plan. Before we do that, do we have any more questions on that? Okay. I'm looking for a motion for the resolution approving the site plan for the springs at Willowbrook, subject to conditions. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Lee
Do I have
Stolarski.
a second?
Second, Dallas. Pearson.
Emily, can you please again take the vote?
Yes, Commissioner Bullion,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner Diata,
Yes.
Commissioner Jurgensen,
Aye.
Commissioner Millis,
Aye.
Commissioner Pearson,
Aye.
Commissioner Stolarski.
Aye.
So that motion also passes. Congratulations to you guys from Continental. You're all set for going on.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Looking forward to being part of the community.
Thank you. And yes, and I will follow up with you about the next steps going to the City Council on May 25th.
Thank you. All right. Have a great night, everyone.
Aye.
Thank you.
Emily, do you have any additional information for us?
Just two things. Again, as Councilmember Olson, wanted to remind you about the meeting with the Planning Commission and the City Council, that opportunity to have a face-to-face conversation, bring up any issues, ideas that you may have. That's May 18th from 6 to 6:30 at the Discovery Center or on Zoom. So please RSVP to Sue Berry. I think she's heard from 2 people so far, so I think she needs to hear from more folks as to whether or not you'll be able to attend. And then we will have a meeting on June 3rd. We have 2 applications that have been submitted. One of them is for the building additions at Tartan High School that are part of their bond referendum plan for their facilities. And then the other one is for multifamily housing near Helmo Station. So this may be the first project starting that small area plan development, that Bethesda Cornerstone Village at Helmo Station. So we'll look forward to June 3rd, whether we're on Zoom again or in person.
I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Okay, Emily, could you do the privilege of?
Well, for this motion to adjourn, Commissioner Bullion,
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell,
Aye.
Commissioner Diata,
Yes.
Commissioner Jurgensen,
Aye.
Commissioner Millis,
Aye.
Commissioner Pearson,
Aye.
and Commissioner Stolarski.
Aye.
Sounds good. See you guys on June 3rd, hopefully in person.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone. Have a good
Thank
evening.
you. Good night.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.